I know what you will be thinking when you see the title of this review. The RunCam 2 HD has been out for a good while now, but it's one of the action cams that I don't have, so let's see if it still stacks up. A couple of years ago, hobbyists were only given the option to use either a Mobius cam or a GoPro on their mini quad, but now there is a sea of different cameras that are being released quicker than you can buy them, so what do you go for? Well, unfortunately, the answer is not as clear-cut as you might think. You see, they all have their own advantages and disadvantages, depending on your tastes and what you are after. The GoPro-style cams, such as the Yi, generally offer great quality, but they are not the most aerodynamic of camera, being a square box. Whereas the RunCam is not repurposed, it is designed specifically to be used on an RC model, hence its longer aerodynamic form factor. Let's check what you get in the package. It comes in a really nice box full of goodies. We have the camera on top, which comes in this bright orange colour. It looks a bit garish, but it is done for a reason. Its inspiration has always been the Mobius cam, even going back to version 1, which looks identical to the Mobius. The form factor is the same, however the Mobius is black, and when you have a crash and the camera flies off into some long grass, it's lost forever. The fluorescent orange is there so that you can find it when it departs from your model. It doesn't come with a battery installed. There is a clip on the back, which I found really tough to get off. This can be seen as a good or bad thing. I think it's a good thing because also inside this battery cover is the micro SD card slot. You will notice that on my Yi camera I have some black tape covering the micro SD card slot. That's because on my flying field there are about 4 expensive micro SD cards lost forever. The instant I have a crash with the Yi, Mobius or Foxia Legend camera, the SD card pops out. And because they are spring-loaded slots, they ping off into the distance, never to be seen again. So in my opinion, this strong end cap is a good thing. However, it has taken some skin off my fingers trying to remove it in the process. The best way to remove it is to get your nails underneath the gap of the battery cover rather than pressing it down with your thumb. Also in the box is another box containing some accessories. I'm happy to see a holder which also has a tripod screw in it. This is similar to what you get with the Mobius camera. You also get multiple leads. One is to utilize the camera's video out capability for people who like to use it as an FPV cam as well as a HD recorder. I have always used 2 cameras because I don't like the latency of HD cams, nor do I like the dynamic range compared to a dedicated FPV camera. The other lead is just a bog standard micro USB lead. You are given a safety strap which can be used to attach to the model to ensure that in a crash the camera stays attached to something and doesn't fly off and get lost. We have 2 adhesive Velcro straps as well as 2 thin Velcro straps for securing the camera to your model. I really wish more camera manufacturers would supply these, but again, other cameras are not specifically designed for FPV where this one is. I have to say these straps have proven very useful for all of my other cameras. You are given a spare lens protector. The lens protector isn't like the Mobius lens cap, which is good really. I always lose my Mobius lens caps. Instead, this one shields the sun to help with lens glare as well as sticking out the front to protect the lens as well in a crash. It will need to be cleaned however, as the lens is still exposed to the air. At the bottom of the box hiding is the removable 850 mAh battery. It charges via the USB slot on the back of the camera. Let's take a look at some of the specifications of the camera. The lens up front is 120 degrees field of view. The sensor is 4 megapixels. The video resolution is 1080p at 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, or 720p at 120 frames per second. We'll take a look at that more in the app later. Video files are saved in a MOV format. You need a Class 6 or above micro SD card to save the footage. It does not come included with one. You can power up to 17 volts through the USB of the camera, which means you can use up to a 4-cell battery to power the camera directly if you want to save weight. Without the battery, the camera weighs just 35 grams, and with the battery it weighs 49 grams, which is lighter than the Yi camera. The current draw is said to be 600 milliamps, so with a 850 milliamp battery you should get over an hour of record time, but I found that this is only the case if you are recording in 30 frames per second mode, and that in 60 frames per second mode you will get about half an hour of runtime. There are just 2 buttons on the RunCam. The small one is the Wi-Fi and mode button, and the big button is the power and shutter button for videos and photos. A short press of the smaller button will turn on and off Wi-Fi for the RunCam mobile app. A long press will switch from video, photo, or the setting menu while using the TV out function. Under video recording mode, you can press the small button to pause or continue video recording. In the setting mode, a short press of the smaller button will confirm an option change, and a long press will quit that setting. On the power or shutter button, a short press will start and stop video recording, or a single press will take a snapshot in photo mode. A long press for 3 seconds on the power button will turn the cam on and off. When in setting mode, the power button acts as a down button on the menu screen. The LED has some colour indications. When Wi-Fi is connected, the blue LED is on constantly, and it blinks when it is connecting to the Wi-Fi. The blue LED is also on constantly when video recording is paused, and it blinks slowly when it is recording. It will blink quickly when an SD card is not working correctly or is missing. The LED will turn orange constantly when the camera is put into the settings mode. The orange LED also blinks when it's updating the firmware on the camera. It lights up orange constantly when connected to a PC as a storage device or webcam. If you move into photo mode, the LED will light up green constantly when it's ready to take a photo, and it will flash with every shot taken. The green LED will also blink quickly when the camera's battery is getting low. The last colour is the red LED, which will show when the camera is charging via the USB cable, and it will go off when fully charged. Let's take a look at the options we have in the camera, which can be changed using the phone app or the on-screen display setting using the TV out lead. I'm going to be using the RunCam app off the Google Play Store. You have to ensure that mobile data is turned off before trying to connect using Android 6, otherwise the camera won't connect. Connection is really easy, and it is much more reliable than the Yi cam. Turn the cam on using the power button and then short press the smaller button to enable Wi-Fi. The app will then direct you how to connect the camera, which for me happens hassle-free every time. The app is really easy. At the bottom you can scroll through various modes such as burst mode, photo time-lapse, photo mode, video mode, and time-lapse for video. For FPV, I'm only interested in one setting, and that is video mode. You can start the video recording from the app, but I'm not too interested in that. You do that by pressing the big button at the bottom. You can then change into various video resolutions using this button here. You are given 1920 by 1440 at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 60 frames per second, 1080p at 30 frames per second, 720p at 120 frames per second, 720p at 60 frames per second, and 640 by 480 at 240 frames per second. For FPV, I'm only interested in 1080p at 60 frames per second. There is an option to record in slow motion by pressing this button to the side, however I won't be using that for FPV. Then at the top of the screen is the white balance settings. Generally I will be keeping this on auto. Next to that is the exposure adjustment, which I will be keeping as standard as well. Then we can change the field of view to 3 different settings. I will be keeping mine to the widest option. The metering mode is an interesting one. It allows us to choose where the camera takes its info from to get different dynamic ranges. For this review I kept it on the center metering mode, however I have also found the spot metering mode good for FPV. We can flip the image if you want to mount the camera upside down, and we are also given the battery level of the camera on screen as well as the amount of record time left on the SD card. There are two other icons at the bottom. One allows you to view the pictures and videos on the camera's SD card. It has to download the clip to the phone before you can view it. You are also given the option to remove the display settings and go full screen. Lastly, there is a settings icon at the top right. Here you can sync the time from your phone to the date stamp on the camera. You can turn off the date stamp, which I have done. You can turn the audio on or off. Change the power supply frequency to match your building to avoid flickering from particular lighting at night time. We are given the option to change the TV output mode from NTSC or PAL and have the TV out to be displayed full screen 4:3 or 16:9. You can change the Wi-Fi settings to have a different password and name. We are also given the SD card capacity and the option to format it. You can reset everything to its default settings, and you can also view the app and firmware version of the camera. That's all the technical stuff out of the way. Let's go and see how it actually performs. I was quite surprised how well this camera performed. I have seen footage from it before on YouTube and thought it looked pretty average. However, I'm using a 4K screen to view the raw footage and it's completely crystal clear and sharp. I think it's difficult to say which action camera is the best because everyone has different tastes. I will be doing a comparison video shortly on which I think is the best. But I have to say, feature-wise, the RunCam sits in the middle of them all. I think the camera is the best for how well it works with its app. An area where I think this camera slightly lacks is with its dynamic range. This is using the center spot metering option, and you can see that it does take a slight adjustment between different lighting conditions, causing dark patches on the image in places. But it's nowhere near as bad as I thought. It more than makes up for that with its form factor. For some reason, the quad is flying so much better than it does with my Yi camera attached. It's more aerodynamic and lighter. I feel like I have more punch, and it's improved the tune of the quad slightly as well. Many will say that that could be fixed with a better tune, but I'm not someone who likes messing around with PID settings too much. I also find that this camera has less vibrations than any other camera I have. It sat on the vibration dampening plate on my ZMR 250, and with my Yi camera attached, its surface area is so much bigger that strong winds cause it to wobble. I also find that to be the case with the Foxeer Legend, despite it being more aerodynamic and a similar form factor. That's not the case at all with the RunCam. The video footage is smooth, and I think the camera has the best colour when compared to its competitors. The audio on this cam is an interesting one. Many reviewers commented that the audio was really poor, and if your intention is to use this camera for multiple purpose, such as a hat cam, then that statement is correct. However, this camera isn't designed to be a hat cam. It's purely designed to be an FPV camera, and while others will say that the audio is terrible on this camera, I believe that it has been designed that way for a reason. Just as there are lighting dynamics, there's also sound dynamics. When we put a camera on an aircraft, we want to hear the sound of the motors, which sit at the higher frequency of the sound spectrum. However, the movement of the quadcopter also creates an unwanted amount of wind noise. The most unpleasant frequency of wind noise is down at the base end at around 100 Hz and below. If you cut this frequency out, then the majority of horrible wind noise will be cancelled out. Of course, the whooshing sound of wind noise covers pretty much all of the sound spectrum, so you will still hear it. It just won't be so unpleasant. This is what I believe RunCam has done, which gives a better sound on board an aircraft, but a completely useless result for any other application. I suppose it would be better to give the option to turn this software-induced filter off depending on your preference, which opens up the camera for more uses. However, this does not bother me too much. I'm just purely using this as an FPV camera. This will surprise some of you, but I think this camera will be replacing my Yi on this quadcopter, just because of how much better it flies, and the lesser vibrations caused by its more aerodynamic profile. I'm not stopping there though. As mentioned, I will be doing a full comparison soon to show which is my favourite action cam for a mini quad, so stay tuned. You can buy the RunCam from Banggood. I will put a link in the description if you wish to do so. You do get a really good package for the money. As always, thanks so much for watching. You can follow me on Instagram at AndyRC_channel for more content. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.